What is up, guys? We're going to be looking at the best champions for solo queue that aren't banned that often. Now, I am going to be doing a separate video on like the god tier, like the best in each role, probably next week at some point, but I wanted to do this one first, and these are the champions who are still really good, but they have a less than 10% ban rate, meaning that you actually have a good chance of playing them, getting them every game, and climbing with them. So as always, we're going to be starting at the top of the map, and then we're going to be working our way down, and we're going to start with Renekton. The good old Croc has come back, and he's so strong at the moment. He has a really good lane phase. Like, he can crush a lane harder than probably any other top laner because he just has so much base damage and a lot of sustain with his Q as well. The misconception that led to him kind of having a downfall is that Renekton does nothing mid to late game, and this is completely different now, partly with how his kit scales, and that was changed kind of a little while ago, but also because of the new Black Cleaver. He does really good damage mid game, and he actually does good damage late game as well with the Black Cleaver. And remember that he's helping the rest of your team, especially your AD, do more damage with that Black Cleaver as well. He's actually really hard to gank, and it's very easy for him to 1v2 people. He only really needs one damage item, but with two he can start to one-shot people. Now this is really good because it means you can build damage in lane and you can stomp your lane opponent, you can get a really huge lead, but then when it comes to team fights, you're still going to be really tanky and you can absorb a lot of damage while killing people. The reasons why you wouldn't pick Renekton, I guess, is he's kind of the middle ground. He's not really an Aurelia or a Riven, he doesn't do that much damage, and he's not as tanky as a Maokai or Shen either. Now I put this as a con, but honestly it's not a massive deal. He does rely on getting a lead early, but because he's Renekton, because he's so good in lane and he can crush people so well, he will always pretty much get a lead, but he does need it to be effective. Okay, so please don't flame me. Okay, I know I hate playing against Shyvana just as much as everyone else, but she's actually really good right now. And she has a crazy clear speed, like probably faster than anyone else, and she can get so much farm in the jungle. And if she finds someone in her jungle or in the enemy jungle, she will almost always win a 1v1 because she is really good at dueling. She doesn't take much damage, but she dishes out a ton. Now she's hard to lock down with her ultimate and her movement speed, which means that you can take a combat summoner instead of taking flash, like an exhaust or ignite will make you really deadly in a 1v1 situation, or can help you gank a little bit more. Now you will make the enemy jungler's life hell. Like if you thought it was bad playing against a Nunu, imagine Shyvana comes in, she steals your buff anyway, but then she's going to kill you afterwards. At least Nunu leaves, right? He just waddles away. He doesn't turn around and take your life as well. The thing with Shyvana is your focus early is to farm, and you want to carry mid to late game after you farmed and got a few items. That is like the biggest problem with Shyvana, is she is not a very good ganker and she can't really help her teammates out a lot early, so it kind of relies on them surviving, you farming, and then you coming in and carrying mid game. It's kind of like an Udyr. You either carry really hard or you do nothing. One thing I do want to point out though is a really good build is Cinderhulk into Blade the Ruined King. It means you're really tanky and you're really hard to kill, and Blade gives you all the damage you're actually going to need to 1v1 someone, so it makes you this unstoppable beast. Right, so next up we have Annie in the mid lane. Now, Annie is kind of like, okay, so if Foxtrot was a girl instead of a guy, it would basically sum up our childhood. He'd jump out of nowhere, he'd whack me in the nuts and stun me and then run away again. Like, that is Annie's playstyle in a nutshell. That is the first thing, like her stun is really overpowered, and you can have a second stun up pretty quickly if you have some cooldown reduction as well. She's also very easy to play and pick up, so if you don't main mid lane, Annie is a good champion to have if you're forced into that role. She's really good throughout the lane, she's good in the lane phase and can kill her opponent a lot. She's really good mid and late game as well, and can really affect a team fight with her huge burst. The really cool thing with Annie is that she's really good at turning around games that don't look very good. She just has to get one really good ultimate in a team fight and she can have such a big impact. And the other side of it is that she's really good at roaming. Like if your other lanes aren't doing well, then you can buy Moby boots, you can run around and stun people and get them ahead. The biggest problem with Annie is that she's very reliant on her flash to guarantee a good ultimate. She has to get distortion early really, which is 475 gold down the drain, because she needs her flash as often as possible. The thing that kind of ties into this as well is that she's really not very mobile, and sometimes you're going to have to blow your flash to get away, and that can actually really hurt your teamfight potential mid game. Now, not that I'm biased or anything like that, but let's move on to the best role, the AD carry. This is the most important role in the game, right? For this one, I'm going to be using Vayne. Now, Vayne is one of these champions where she's only as good as you are with her. Like if you are bad with Vayne, then you will be bad and you won't have much of an impact in the game, but if you are really good with her, then you'll have a huge impact in the game. A lot of people are probably going to be like, why are you putting Vayne here? I crush Vayne all day, every day. And you probably do, but you probably crush bad Vaynes. To explain it, like, we'll look at the most popular ADs, right? These are the top 8 popular ADs, and 7 of those champions are actually a good matchup for her. They're either easy or kind of medium difficulty and can go either way. The only one you'll really struggle against is going to be Graves, because he has his passive and he's pretty tanky, and also has so much burst and can kill you before you get enough time to kill him. That is a big reason of why I put her in this list, because in 3 of those matchups you should win, 3 of them you can win if you play it right, and 1 of them is just going to be really hard. This covers up her weakest phase in the game, which is her lane phase, and can set you up for a really strong mid to late game. Vayne can pretty much carry a game on her own, and as we just said, her lane phase is not as bad as you think it is. The problems with Vayne is that you can be bullied in lane and you can get behind, especially if the enemy support is playing a kill lane. Something a lot of people don't think about is Vayne is really weak to AoE damage in team fights. Like, you have to be a little bit closer so you're not as safe as other ADs, and AoE damage that's not necessarily aimed at you can really harm your damage output. The final thing is she is just one of the hardest ADs to play. She's very mechanically intensive, which means you have to make good decisions and you have to be good mechanically to actually pull her off. Comparing supports is actually really difficult because they're all kind of good at different things, but the one I want to highlight is Nautilus. He has a really high kill potential, like really high in lane. He has really good lockdown and crowd control as well, which helps with that, but part of it is just because he's so tanky and he does a lot of damage as well. The really dumb thing, and the thing I hate about playing against him, is that he can solo the enemy AD at early levels. Like, if you trade with him at level like 2 and 3, you're actually probably going to come out on top. That's just his lane phase, and I think honestly he's one of the strongest kill lanes in lane right now, but when we get to team fights he has really good engage and he can actually peel really well as well. The problems with playing Nautilus is that he only goes in, like he has no off switch, and he's not really that good when he's behind. He can't do that much in a weaker lane, so you don't really want to pair him with someone who just wants to farm, and he has like no fun playing against sustain and no fun playing against disengage. So that wraps up the video on the best champions I think are really good for solo queue right now but aren't actually banned. With these kind of videos, I actually really love reading the comments and seeing if you guys agree or disagree or who you think is strong and bad at the moment. So make sure you leave a couple of comments and I'll try and reply to a few if I can. And as always, I'll catch you in my next video.